Oops, producer was doing something else. Okay. Let's see. We've got an app popping up. Mary Grace here. How is everybody tonight? Good evening. You can tell I'm not used to doing nighttime shows. We have a special report for you. This is going to be a really good show, very interesting show. And I hope that everybody got the notification. I'm going to send out another email in just a minute. You're watching Mary Grace TV. And I have a couple of distinguished guests on a panel tonight to talk to you about a story that some of you may not even know about yet, because, of course, it's being heavily suppressed, if even at all mentioned at all, by the fake news media. And this is a story about Tyson Foods laying off 1,200 workers and closing a plant in Iowa in a town of 8,000, and then announcing that they are going to be hiring asylum seekers in other parts of the country, and giving them all kinds of benefits. But if you think that's bad, it actually gets worse, and we're going to talk about that on tonight's show. But as you're coming in, I just want to remind everybody that we have a way for you to stay in touch, and that is by getting on the Mary Grace email list. And so if you are wondering why the heck you're not getting notifications on the social media channels, we all know why. But if you get on my email list, marygracemedia.com, you can get the notifications by email. I sent out an email before this show so people know that we are live. Please join the email list, marygracemedia.com. And I will remind you that this is listener supported. So when you're on my website, click on over on the shopping tab and go and check out the America First companies that we partner with, because when you do business with them, it helps all of us. It helps you get America First products. It helps you support America First businesses and jobs, and it helps support this channel, Mary Grace TV. So before we get started here, I want to show you a little video that I think encapsulates the situation that we're dealing with right now in this country. I think that it is a continuance of what we know of as the 16-year plan to destroy America, but this is a 90-second recap of what the plan is in terms of destroying the country. So hold on tight, drop a message in the comments for us, let us know you're here, but most of all, watch this and just yeah, hold on to your hats. Here we go.
Open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
Okay, so just a little light intro there.
He encapsulated the last 20 years in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. That was brilliant.
I know,
Brilliant.
so good. Okay, so let me introduce everybody here. We've got some illustrious panelists here. I'm just facilitating this. I am not the person who has done the research, but I know good research and I know good minds when I see them. I have with me on the center of the screen our one of our favorite anons, MJ Truth Ultra. MJ Truth Ultra on Twitter, and then MJ Truth on Truth Social. You also have a Telegram channel where you post a lot. I'm not on Telegram as much, so you'll have to tell us that. What's your Telegram?
It's candles in the night, but you can type in MJ Truth and it will
Uh,
pop.
okay, so and you have a pretty big following on Telegram, and then we have Kevin Lynn. Kevin Lynn is the executive director of the Center. Well, oh gosh, you changed it. Hold on a
I did.
second.
It's the Institute for Sound Public Policy.
Institute for Sound Public Policy, which also includes U.S. tech workers.
Mhm.
And so Kevin has a wealth of knowledge and years of experience working in this space. He is in touch with some of the brightest legal minds in this area. He's also had the privilege of sitting with President Donald Trump in a roundtable during a crisis situation that he helped to avert. And this was during the pandemic when the Tennessee Valley Authority decided that they were going to lay off all of their workers who had already been suspended because of the shutdowns, and they were going to replace them with foreign workers. Kevin got the attention of President Trump, and it led to a roundtable. You can see Kevin sitting there to the left of President Trump, to the right on your screen. President Trump got this action stopped. He got the head of Weyerhaeuser to stop that action, and that was amazing. And so we all heard about it. I just didn't know Kevin at the time, but that is one tremendous accomplishment that he's done. I want to come back to MJ Truth for just a minute as well, because MJ is one of the most prolific anons who is doing amazing research, posting content, sourcing content. Every single Trump rally, he posts clips. He recaps the rallies. I can't believe the volume of content that he puts out. It's just incredible. The other day, we saw a story about what was happening at Tyson Foods, and MJ's feed popped up with a hold on, wait a minute, there's more warning. And when some people do that, I just scroll right through because they are all hat and no cattle. When MJ tells us, just hold on a minute, I've got more for you, I pay attention because I know that his research is solid and he doesn't give us empty promises. So we're going to start with the recap. We're going to let MJ recap the original Tyson story, and then we're going to let him tell you what he found out about a bigger, really sinister plan that makes the Tyson story look like a day in the park for Americans. Um, as you're listening, please share this on every platform you're on. I don't know that anybody else is really highlighting this on any channels. So we really want to get this story out to as many people as you can. Share, tag, give us the hearts, give us comments so that this will go up in your feed because we are live. Okay, MJ, welcome to the show. And thank you again for all of your hard work. Can you just give us the rundown, the basic story, and then tell us what you found about this tent organization?
Yeah, sure. So it spiraled off from that story of a Tyson plant in Iowa that was closing down, and I think it shut down well over a quarter of the jobs down there. I think it was a little town of about 8,000 folks, and I think it was nearly 1,500, if I remember correctly, jobs that were going to be affected. And just to be clear, that's just not 15 jobs. Those are outside vendors, electricians, people that work in there. So
Yeah.
you can imagine the impact that it would have on such a small town.
And all the businesses surrounding it. They say that, hundreds of people are employed when a company of that size has a presence in a town, right?
Exactly. You're talking HVAC service, you're talking
Mm.
plumbing service, you're talking restaurants, you're talking all kinds of businesses.
Yeah.
And there's a number to it. There's a ratio for every,
And
one job.
yeah,
It equates to about 5 other jobs. So
Kevin might know that ratio actually, maybe. Uh,
I had heard, over the years, I'd heard it expressed as roughly 3 to 1. Because when you look at, the professional services that are required for that company, as MJ was saying, janitorial services, but then there's the people that service those companies. So there's a significant downstream there for any
Okay.
large, particularly manufacturer
Okay.
or producer in a town.
Great. Okay. And so, MJ, let's pick up the story from here. We know that it's more than just 1,200 jobs that are affected. Obviously, it's a tremendous downstream trickle impact of what they're doing here. And then, not only are they closing and taking away these jobs, what's the next thing they're doing?
Yeah, so whenever I hear or read about something like that, I look at a few things. I look at shareholders. I look at the NPOs involved, and that's kind of how I came across it. Everybody's familiar with the World Economic Forum and how evil they are and how bad they are for especially America in the world. But I started cross-referencing the types of programs Tyson was involved with, and I just happened to come across his tent program, and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. So started reading into it, and the more I read into it, the more it just painted this broader picture that this is planned, coordinated, and actions are being taken right now to implement this mass migration agenda. So Tyson partnered with Tent. Like I said, it's a non-profit organization, and their motto is to improve the lives of refugees. A gentleman named Hamdi, I'm probably going to butcher this, Ulukaya.
Ulukaya, correct, yes.
Yes, sir. So he is a Turkish billionaire, an activist, he's basically another George Soros, if you just want to summarize it, who was involved with this company, and he's been around. This tent program came to fruition from the World Economic Forum in Davos. So right there, that's a big red flag.
Yeah.
And the more you read into it and see the involvement with the companies that have partnered and have placed themselves under this umbrella of an understanding that, hey, we're going to hire this amount of refugees. And the top argument I got from that work I posted, those findings was, well, refugees are, kind of different than migrants. And so if you read into it more, you can see the language used. You can see it's not just refugees. They're using language such as asylum seekers and people that have come from places of unrest. And as you are seeing right now, literally playing out before our eyes, what's going on in Haiti, what's going on in Venezuela. I just read something about Cuba. I haven't really dived too deep into that, but Cuba has a lot of unrest, food security is going on right now, to where it's causing these mass migration shifts. So, in a nutshell, these companies have agreed to hire a set amount of refugees. I just call them illegals, call them what they are, and they are implementing that right now. And from what I sense, what I took away from Tyson, although they blamed the shutting down of the Iowa plant on poor performance or sales, it's a bunch of bullcrap, in my opinion. And I think we're going to see more of that. And regardless what they try to describe it as, these are jobs. They announced 42,000 jobs for illegal immigrants. Those are 42,000 opportunities that Americans will not have. 42,000 types of benefits, the insane benefits that these people are getting, Americans will not have. So
Yeah, tell us about the benefits because you posted this and I couldn't believe it. I was a little bit shocked, when you actually followed up and said, "Here's the benefits that Tyson Foods is offering illegal immigrants." Can you fill us in on that?
I don't have, if I try
Oh,
to close this out,
I'll
if
read it.
if you
Here,
pull
I'll
it
read
up.
it. Yep. Okay. So temporary housing and relocation stipend, time off to acclimate to Humboldt, Tennessee. Hold on a second. I have a graphic for this. Hold on, hold on, hold on.
Yep.
This is going to really blow your. Okay, here we go. You just look at this while I'm reading. Okay. Temporary housing and relocation stipend, time off to acclimate to Humboldt, Tennessee, on-site childcare, on transportation, paid time off for court hearings. Okay, there you go. And
Yep.
so the meme that I have up, in case you're just listening to the audio, it says, "If you're better off today than you were 4 years ago, you are probably an illegal alien." Okay. So, um, this is where we are. And it gets even it gets worse because we know I'm gonna read the list since, MJ can't access his list of companies. It's a very
Oh,
long
I,
list.
I
Oh,
have the list. If it's a who's who. I'm
Yeah,
just looking at it right.
let's let Kevin read it because there's an interesting thing about one of the members of this list happens to be the founder of the tent
Dubani. Yeah.
organization, okay, Chobani Yogurt. And his story is interesting in and of itself because of the vagaries of his backstory. So I'm going to turn this over to Kevin. Kevin is the one that alerted me to the fact that the man who founded Tent is also the founder of Chobani, which is one of these businesses that that Tent is going to be giving favorable status to the refugees over the American workers. Okay,
Really quick, I
yeah,
forgot to mention, if you don't mind, Kevin, one important detail that I found was that Antony Blinken signed a memorandum of understanding with Tent just recently. So if you look into that and read it, it's all about creating. They're using those buzzwords, just creating opportunity for refugees, making sure that they have a nice life and a safe place. Um, so it's very important to understand that this administration is actively financially backing this. They're giving financial incentives. If you look into that memorandum, Blinken was talking about financial incentives. I haven't dived too deep into that. I've heard different things as far as tax. A whole bunch of tax credits that companies are going to um, uh, be benefited from. I can't confirm it. I couldn't even find really much information on it, but a few people have said that they work for Tyson, or they heard through the grapevine that they're paying these people, a substantially less amount than what Americans would make. So there's a financial gain there. So there
mhm.
is government incentive to doing this, and it's all in that memorandum. If you take the time to look at it and read it.
And for those who want to look up tent, it is like it's like a camping tent. tent.org. Tent.org is the organization that we're talking about. Interestingly, a .org is typically a nonprofit. And so that always gets your hackles up and also gets your spidey senses tingling because now we know that nonprofit is pretty synonymous with money laundering. Okay, so Kevin, I think this is where you come in because I want to talk a little bit about the legalities and the logistics of employing foreign workers, especially when it comes to the salary differentials and the benefits to the companies. It looks like we have our tax dollars subsidizing this across all of these corporations. It's actually several hundred corporations. The list that MJ posted includes a few dozen. And I'm going to retweet this right now on my X account. I'm going to retweet it. So if you go to my X account, Mary Grace TV, you'll see it. But let's go into some of the logistics. Just give us some numbers. This is Kevin's area of expertise for people who are just joining us. He has spent his life's work really helping U.S. tech workers, all U.S. workers, just to be protected from these types of policies that put them on the sidelines. So take
Right,
it
and
away,
it's all
Kevin.
and all these policies were contrived to do just that. I used to say, for instance, that they're abusing the H-1B employment visa program, and attorney John Miano pointed out, who said, "No, no, no, it's working exactly the way it was designed to do. That was the whole intent behind the Immigration Reform Act in 1990." But before I really get into things, I want to give wings to something MJ said because it's really important. MJ, you had mentioned like the classification. You had said that, well, they're calling them refugees, but they're also calling them other things. They're creating a whole new category where they're including asylum seekers, any number of other things. And this is really important because when you look at, for instance, the United Nations Refugee Agency, you know, they are monitoring roughly 21 million people who have been forced out of their country for one reason or another, or domiciled somewhere else. But of that 20 million, only 2 million need resettlement. These are people, because the whole idea of asylum and being a refugee is, and I've talked to real refugees, people who on the merit of their case were made refugees here in the United States or given asylum here in the United States. And it's really a life raft we're throwing to someone. It's really intended to not be applied at a large, to scale. It's really, you're looking at individual cases, whether it is someone who has been like people I know who had grown up in the country of Georgia, and in the 90s when someone took over and literally they're being of Armenian descent, they were forced to leave under gunpoint. These are the people who can't go back. And if they go back, something bad will happen. But in all the world, there are only about 2 million people or less that actually meet that criteria. So as MJ said, they're really blowing it out. So right now, we have this term asylum seeker.
Yeah.
And that is literally as Art Miller of CIS said, that is the de facto go-to, when they're talking to someone on the border. Oh, I'm fleeing. Whether they're saying I'm fleeing LGBTQ persecution or they don't like the way I look, asking for asylum has become the de facto go-to. And typically it wouldn't matter whether it was a de facto go-to or not. In the past, prior to the Biden administration, these people would be detained at the border until their individual case was adjudicated. And very few actually get through that, because typically people they seek asylum in the first contiguous country.
That's the law.
It's the law.
Yeah.
And it's also recognized by the UN High Commission on Refugees as the way, as the more or less the policy. And so what MJ said is now they're really going to open the floodgates up. And I'm so glad, MJ and Mary Grace, you brought this to my attention, because I've had this article with me since 2017. And
that's the yogurt guy.
Ukulele. Ulakaya.
That's the yogurt guy.
Yeah, that's the yogurt guy.
Yeah.
And this article really details how he was using, for instance, this plant that he had built in Idaho to bring in refugees as his workforce. And of course, everyone is saying, "Oh my God, what a wonderful human being." It's like, As he even said himself. Now, I don't think what is in this article, hard copy article from 2017, because that's how I used to store information up until a few years ago. I would just rip it out of an article, throw it into an accordion file.
You're such a boomer. Okay.
But I know.
Oh, we just lost him. I called him a boomer. Okay. All right, he's back.
Here it goes. And what's interesting about this article, it dovetails, because even he says, and the author goes, effectively there are two Hamdis: the driven businessman out to obliterate his rivals, and the empathetic humanitarian. I'm a shepherd and I'm a warrior. Well, this is what's going on. And we've seen this, like, for instance, with the H-1B visa, the employment visa that they use to bring in ordinary tech workers to displace American skilled workers, white collar workers, is that they ostensibly, the real reason to do it is to create a system of indentured servitude. So these people are brought in. And the H-1B visa it's ostensibly a temporary work visa, but it's what they call a dual intent, and that was how it was created, because they'll come and they'll work for 3 years, extend for 3 years, and then the company that's sponsoring them can say, "Oh, we're going to sponsor you for a green card." It's up to the company. So they've effectively kept them on the plantation because think about it. If you're one of the FANGs, Facebook, uh, Alphabet, Netflix, Amazon,
Google.
yeah, you're concerned that, well, your people will go off, create a better mousetrap. Well, this effectively, because what they've been really successful in doing is pushing out the American workers and really the rest of the world, because over 73% of the people that come in on H-1B visas come from one country, India. And it's gotten very tribal in these hiring environments where they
Mhm.
only hire their own. And so what they've effectively done is they've created this tribe, and they're able to, in companies like Cisco, Hewlett Packard, Amazon, Facebook,
Mhm.
just keep out the rest of the world.
Mhm.
And for the company, although they get the hit on productivity and innovation, they're not going anywhere. They become a
Right. Yeah.
monopoly in so
Eh,
many respects. And this guy,
yeah.
Hamadi, I really believe when I was reading this 2017 article and why I chose to keep it,
Yeah.
it's because he was creating this. This was the test case, I believe. And MJ, I'd love to get your thoughts. So he's got his plant in Idaho and that
Yeah.
plant in New York, and they are pumping in quote unquote refugees. And what they have is they have a very quiescent workforce. You can pay them a prevailing wage, you can pay them a living wage, but they're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to raise a stink if something happens in the workplace
Mhm.
that, because again, they're indebted. They're in a new country. All they know is Hamdi and his people. They don't have a background in civics. They're certainly not going to sue him for anything. So, and given his success, and I would like to talk to MJ about, and you'd mentioned it, Mary Grace, his backstory, which I find to be
It's
pretty
just
darned
it
incredible.
it's obtuse, really. I mean, MJ, I don't know if you saw this. Well, I replied and dropped the article. There's an article that Kevin sent me. Is it the same article? Because you sent me the digital version of this. His backstory, just for those of you who are listening, and by the way, thank you everybody for being here. We have a huge audience tonight, and I just want to encourage everybody who can to share this because, like I said, I really don't think that it's gotten nearly the airtime that it should be getting. As far as I know, MJ is pushing the story. Ann Vandersteel has been posting about it several times, but as far as even the conservative networks are really not highlighting this story, and it needs to get out there. This is a critical story. But I want to go to this article because it is in the it's called the greekreporter.com, the Turkish businessman who made Americans fall in love with Greek yogurt. It was December 17th, 2023. And this is really interesting because it says that Chobani has transformed one of Greek's signature dishes, blah blah blah. So it's a little bit of a it's a very friendly article. It says that he's a from a Kurdish dairy farmer family. Maybe he is, but this is the part that really struck me. Ulukaya immigrated to America in 1994 to attend school.
Yes.
Like, what does that mean? Who
Well,
put him
even
there?
going back behind that, because it's in the 2017 article, not that one. I just found this actually this afternoon.
Yeah,
Uh, so he's literally, his story is he grew up, his family, they were shepherds.
yeah,
Okay. And in the
yeah,
winter, they go into the village they go
yeah.
into the village to winter.
And he was
And
Kurd. He was a Kurd.
he's a Kurd.
Yeah.
Right. So apparently he's pretty smart because he gets to go to college in Ankara, the capital.
Okay.
And he's studying political science, and he gets wrapped up in the PPK, which is the Turkish view them as a Kurdish terrorist group. Others might view them as dissidents.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, he got into a bit of a sticky wicket. Didn't appear that he had done any jail time, but then he has to leave the country, and he
Okay.
leaves with $3,000. Shows up in New York, and as you
To
said, Mary
attend
Grace,
school.
enrolls in college. Hmm. You know, who would have an opportunity to assess radicalized members of a terrorist group in Turkey? Any agency, any alphabet agencies
Wait a
come to
minute,
mind?
hold on. It's gonna come to me. Wait. Is it the same people that sent Hussein to Occidental? Maybe.
Oh,
Oh,
if
okay.
maybe,
Well,
you know,
all right.
get a little bit of time to assess them there in the nation's capital, and off they go. And then he's a student and he's poor, and a professor has a farm in upstate New York, invites him up to teach her how to make cheese. And then he works
Wow.
for her milking cows, shoveling manure. And then his brother
Gosh.
comes over, and within a couple years, they buy an old Kraft yogurt factory.
Wow.
$3,000 to 1.6 billion
That's
in the
so
course of,
wholesome. It's so wholesome.
yeah.
Listen, and so yeah, let me give you the time frame here, guys, because it says that just over a decade after he got here, so 2004, um, he decided to start his yogurt business in a region of the country that had dominated the industry since the 1800s. Chobani quickly ascended to the top of the industry, reaching $1 billion in sales by 2012. Crazy.
Meteoric.
Um, yeah, meteoric, and then the company in 2021, they go public. They had an IPO that valued the company at $10 billion.
Yeah, 10 times earnings, yeah.
Crazy. I mean, I've watched Shark Tank. I know this is like this is impossible. Even I know that. So I want to bring MJ back into here because MJ, you said something about this and you've indicated that you think that this is part of the bigger plan. And I mentioned earlier Hussein, we're talking about, Barack, that his backstory, his history is very suspect in the way that and I actually I knew people when I lived in Hawaii who went to school with him, and not a one of them even knew who he was when he started to run for president. They had no idea, like, they weren't championing their senator from Hawaii. They didn't know him, and the ones who finally figured out who he was told me that at his exclusive prep school that he went to, he was not presidential material because he spent all of his time smoking dope under the bleachers. That was him. And I met his sister, by the way. She
Hmm.
was actually quite lovely, but a completely different ilk, right? The Indonesian sister. So it's just like
Yeah,
nobody knows the history.
one of our board members actually encountered him twice when he was going to school at Occidental College in
Okay.
Los Angeles County.
Yeah.
And yeah, he wouldn't have in a million years guessed presidential timber.
Right, exactly. And so this, and there's so many questions and so many holes. And now we have this guy, the Chobani guy. The stories about him have gaps. And so MJ, based on your research and your understanding and just the way that you're so good at connecting dots, what do you think is going on here?
Well, shoot, what's his name again? I keep forgetting it. Hamdi.
Yeah, Ulukaya,
Look,
Hamdi Ulukaya.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so one thing that I've kind of learned over the past few years is that they're obviously using billionaires to, push forth their agenda. And one thing that I learned from Facebook, and it blew my mind at the time that I learned it, was that the same day a DARPA project, a known DARPA project, closed down, Facebook opened up. I forget the name of it; it's on the tip of my tongue.
LifeLog.
LifeLog, yes. So Mark Zuckerberg didn't start it, right?
Yeah.
So we have these faces that operate at the as the rags to riches, or the success story, but really I can't tell you who put them there, other than what I think is this one world entity that I think that we're fighting against. But they use these people to push forth their agendas. They use these faces as Hamdi. Right now everybody supposedly loves him because he's doing amazing things, but really he's a big architect of what we're seeing as far as job placement for illegals.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly created a model, hasn't he, MJ?
yeah, and he's not the only one. I need to get back to you on it, but there are a couple billionaires that are operating under the same pretenses that it's for the better good, and more migration is good for the U.S. economy, and it's just a bunch of BS. Yes,
Mhm.
migration is good and it's healthy for a country, um, and you want to bring in the best and brightest, but I mean, look around, we're not bringing in the best and brightest. So
That's
Yeah.
absolutely true. I mean, again and again, these are at best ordinary people. And Mary Grace, when I've been down on the border with Michael Yon and Vander Steel and
Yeah.
Operation
Burning
Burning
Edge.
Edge,
Yeah.
these aren't even most aren't even employment ready. But that's not what they're here for. I think as that 2-minute um, trailer points out that you started the show with, uh, this is displacement, and what makes it great is the scope and the scale.
Yeah, yeah, it's massive, and, we have a listener on YouTube who has been commenting on this, and I want to highlight her
Oh,
comments. This
cool.
is Idaho Garden Girl. She says, "Chobani is in Idaho. I've been trying to get people to pay attention, and they just go ho-hum."
Mm.
And this is really this is so indicative of what we're seeing from the American people, and I don't know what it's gonna take to wake them up. Because based on what we saw during the pandemic, we have such a nation of compliant sheep, who say things like, "Well, my doctor told me to do this," and they're just sort of on the hamster wheel, and I'm afraid that the red pill that they're getting hit with is just gonna be like a massive enema, and I'm sorry for the graphic, but it's people have got to wake up, and, I've said a number of times that if everybody is an asylum seeker, then no one is, and, it reminds me of these people that come into the grocery store with their peekapoo, and when you say something to them, they say, "Oh, it's a service dog." Well, I'm sorry, but if your pet Peekapoo is a service dog, then there are no more service dogs. And, people are exploiting these, they're exploiting everything. I mean, the lawlessness in this country is just off the charts. It looks like we may be losing MJ, but hopefully we'll get him back here.
If I could
Um,
interject for a second
yeah, go
too,
ahead.
um, just yesterday, because the effectiveness of the gaslighting is amazing. So
Yeah,
some guy, I strike up a conversation with him, and this is a guy that doesn't have 2 shekels to rub together. Okay. And he's going on about the government this, the government that. And he had learned, that I kind of know how to get things done, in a community,
yeah.
whether it's a nation or a community. And he goes, "Hey, can you help out? There's a program to build these little casita houses for people like me," because he's semi-homeless. And then he goes, "Yeah, and then they're doing things to the immigrants." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Oh my gosh." I said, dude, do you realize that those immigrants here are here to push you out? They're taking the resources that
Yeah.
should be going to you. We had talked about the United Nations. Well, the United Nations, it's called let me just pull it up to make sure I don't butcher that. It's called the United Nations Regional Refugee and Migrant Response Plan. That's funded to the tune of $1.6 billion. And that's not including now we have over 400 million that goes into that, but that doesn't include all the local, the national, the grift domestically that goes into these uh, volunteer agencies like Church World Services, Catholic Charities, Lutheran Refugee Services, uh, just to name one of 25 really bad actors. So
Mhm.
all that money is not going to our most vulnerable and the people who, all they need is a hand out and a hand up. you know, and they'll be fine. They'll be off the street. But no, that money's earmarked to the new arrivals.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, Glenn, I'm really glad you brought up that the refugee and migrant response plan. I was going to touch on that. It's such an important thing to understand that it's not just the Chobani guy. We have efforts, it seems, by our federal government, by outside entities, the United Nations, and the scariest part about that is we majority fund the United Nations. So that RMRP plan, like you said, it's providing all these resources to illegals. I think Tucker Carlson, he did a fantastic breakdown of I can't think of the gentleman's name, of what's going on in the Darien Gap, and he brought
Michael Yon.
yeah, he brought this subject up, and basically, some people are traveling 60, 70 days just to get here. They're not going to get here without assistance. And what they revealed was that you have all of these nonprofit organizations, or somehow involved with the United Nations, that are aiding. They're giving physical cash. They're giving cash cards out. They're called CVAs, cash and voucher assistance cards. They're like little debit cards. They're feeding them, they're
Yeah,
transporting them, they're housing them. And the craziest part is we're funding it. Those
yeah,
are our tax
yeah.
dollars funding that. And so we have that outside entity. And then I don't know if you wanted to touch on it, but you also have an entity spread across the United States called HIAS, HAIS. Are you guys familiar with
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
let's talk
they're
about that.
another one of the NGOs, like Catholic Charities. They're in there to the tune of they're collecting millions
Yeah.
to resettle people.
Yeah, and they come in, and so our federal government is flying them around the United States, and then we have organizations. That's just one of a few that I know, that are picking them up. They're coaching them. They're telling them what to do next. So for to me it's a full blown invasion, and we're aiding and abetting in it. And who knows how long we get until we just we can't fix it anymore. It's too late.
And I recently sat around with a bunch of people that know this issue really well, and even they're saying, "My God, it's gonna take a lot to fix this." I still believe it can be done. We're going to have to deport, but we do have the resources. We're going to have to move 12 million people back to their homes. For instance, with these companies, so they're going to take advantage of displacing Americans with these programs that they're engineering. And the thing is, a couple things I think we need to do. For instance, last year, there was a job board called Chicago H-1B Connect, and it was made up of 45 companies. And what they did was they were basically, as the FANG companies were firing tech workers, they were collecting up the H-1B visa holders. So instead of them going home in 60 days, they were trying to hire them. And we proved that they were giving priority over Americans. And so we had our 9 plaintiffs applied for jobs. No one got hired. But when we ran a resume where we didn't define the citizenship, but we gave them a South Asian name, same resume, they got a call back. So
Wow.
we're suing all what will be 40 companies. It's a class action suit. And it's like anything else. I fell in love with the courtroom 10 years ago when I was in a suit that when the trial started, the judge said this was a David and Goliath story. And they'll do anything they want, but it's our responsibility to use the courts. They use lawfare. We have to do it back to them. So to these, and I'm glad I'm on your show, Mary Grace, because maybe someone could tell someone who knows someone who knows someone who works at Tyson. Let's see how the firings are being done. Let's see, are these people that are being fired, are they given the opportunity to work in another plant in the Tyson realm?
Okay.
I believe we have citizenship discrimination going on here. And and the thing is, all these people here are here on some form of they're paroled essentially. It's the
Yeah.
Biden administration that's allowing them to work. They shouldn't be. Should be. It's so extra, just beyond the pale. It's insane.
Mhm.
But a new administration come in and revoke, because that's a presidential privilege. They could
Mhm.
revoke every one of those paroles, every one of
Mhm.
those, like DACA. There's several other programs going on where
Mhm.
people can be here, quote unquote, legally, but they don't have status. Don't really have any
Right,
kind of
right.
immigrant
I
status.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because this is a common, narrative that we get from people who really are being used really useful idiots for this agenda. They tell you that once these people so the process, for those who don't know, is that when somebody crosses the border illegally, they're in the past, they would, if they got caught, sometimes they would just get sent back, but in recent years, especially since, the um, inpatient entered the White House, um, they have been coached
Mary Grace.
they've been coached by I was trying to think of the nicest way to say it, but, they've been coached by lawyers to claim asylum,
Yes.
Yep.
and our laws, they're exploiting the laws which allow you to stay in this country on a, release pending a court hearing,
Right, because they
and
should be detained, but,
right.
"Oh, yeah, come back for your court date 3 or
Because
4 years
yeah,
from
and
now."
so Trump had actually arranged with Mexico something called Remain in Mexico, and that was ended, I believe, the first day
Yeah.
of Biden's,
And Title 42,
yeah, title okay, yeah.
2
So
really effective measures. When I was down with Michael Yon on the border, I was speaking with a
okay,
couple National Guardsmen, and they were commenting just how effective that was, because they had a
okay,
shelter full of illegal aliens one week, and it was empty the next.
okay, and
So it
so
was
that's
highly
been
effective.
and
And
so
that was
that's
a policy that was actually crafted by a really fine mind, a fellow by the name of Theo Wald, who is living in Idaho now. He moved out of DC when the
okay,
troubles started, and he's
the
now
troubles.
running the Trump for president campaign there in Idaho.
Okay, and so this is interesting because, those things can be reinstated, and we hope that they will be, on day 1 of, Agenda 47, and, we wanna see that happen, but in the meantime, what's happening is that these people are coming across the border, they're claiming asylum, like, for a hangnail, and they're being granted because they know all of the right words to say on the questionnaire,
That's
and,
exactly what they're coaching them,
right,
along
okay.
their route here to America. Those there's encampments, literal encampments, where the United Nations, they're involved and are basically telling people exactly what to
Mhm.
say. So you're
Eh
exactly right.
right, and we know for sure because we've seen it reported by Michael Yon, by Ann Vandersteel, by, Ben Bergquam,
Hmm.
with Real America's Voice. They have shown, multiple instances of passports being, left on the Mexico side of the border purposely ditched on the ground, especially passports belonging to, Haitians who are coming from, Peru. Is it no, Chile or Peru? Where did
But there
they
were Peru. I
Peru.
recall seeing
Yeah.
stories. Yeah.
Yeah, so Haitians because they wanna come in as Peruvians and not Haitians, but also, people, criminals. So gang members, people with criminal records in their country of origin, they're just ditching their passport and making up a name and claiming asylum. And so they're exploiting the system. What happens is they're given a notice to appear, and this administration is treating that as what you're calling, like a parole form. They're treating it as a legitimate ID, and the people who are being used to push this narrative are telling us that that makes them legal. That is not a legal residence document. That is not a legal work document. Kevin, can you explain the difference?
Yeah, I mean, if you're a legitimate refugee, for instance, you might recall over the summer, SpaceX got into a little bit of row with Department of Justice because some very hawkish folks down in the IER division, basically said he didn't hire a couple of asylees. And according to Title 8, someone who is here as a refugee has to be treated like a citizen. So they have they have a protected status.
Wow.
But these people on parole do not. I mean, if you're here on an employment visa, you have a protected status. Uh, a citizen has a protected status. A lawful permanent resident has a protected status when it comes to employment.
Mhm.
But just because a president declares, well, you can work now, that doesn't mean it can't be revoked because he's exercising extraordinary privilege to do that. And parole itself was always intended to be, and actually Senator Mike Lee in a hearing really emphasized this, and I thought it was awesome. But it was supposed to be on a case by case basis where, let's just say, someone had to come into the country for a medical operation, or they had to come in and testify on something. Well, you're going to be paroled for, a month or a few days, while you're trying to conduct that business, and then you leave. But what's been done now is, like, literally there's this thing there's an app right now, the CPB app, where someone can literally schedule a time to come to the border and get paroled and come into
Yeah.
the country. And we know recently we've learned that over 320,000 people have been flown by this administration directly into the country in total contravention to our immigration laws. This and this is the problem with, and it gets into the whole Exxon or Chevron thing with, bureaucracies exercising power,
Yeah.
essentially litigating or legislating when they should just be carrying the water. Because I can tell you right now, the Immigration and Naturalization Act, this was not the intention on how it was to be used. And
Right.
they're just making it up as they go. And the problem is there isn't enough of a response to hit them back, through the courts, as we've seen. Ourselves, we're a tiny, tiny, people say we have a really outsized footprint on what we're able to do, but we need to bring an in-house counsel and have a legal staff so that every time, let's say, I'll give you a great example, like the Trump administration, they enacted a rule change that would end this, what would they call the H-1B visa lottery. And it would make it
Yeah.
really defang it by saying, okay, from now on, no more lottery. If you want first dibs at a foreign employer, a foreign worker, you're going to have to pay the highest price, and it'll go down the pecking order until that list is done. And that would have been really helpful. Unfortunately, the Biden administration was sued and they quickly settled. And there was no one there to intervene on the part of the administration, whether they'd won it or not, so that
Yeah.
that could be appealed. So those are the kinds of things we need to be doing as a movement and
Mhm.
really getting into everyone's knicker and not leaving any footballs down on the field and running
Mhm.
with everything we
Mhm.
see.
It's interesting though because, we have seen this judiciary, the DOJ, which is directly answers directly to the White House. We have seen them persecuting and maliciously going after attorneys who
Yes.
jump into the fight, to defend anything having to do with rule of law, specifically if it is connected at all to President Trump. And in fact, this is not an attorney, but this is one of President Trump's senior advisors from his first term, Peter Navarro,
Yes.
actually just reported to prison yesterday for refusal to answer a congressional subpoena because he refused to lie against his boss, President Trump. This is the first time in history that a senior White House cabinet advisor has ever been put through this, much less had to report to prison. I believe he's 73 years old,
Yeah,
and so we're
and he's just the finest gentleman,
yeah,
and
yeah,
brilliant. I mean, interestingly enough, the Biden administration hasn't changed any of the trade policies that he enacted under the Trump administration. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how good this guy is.
Yeah.
And he's a consummate gentleman. When they first arrested,
Yeah.
they put him in leg irons, for Christ.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mary Grace. I'm profane, but
You're doing good tonight, Kevin.
thank you.
Yeah, so you're doing good, but we do have a PG show.
Yes.
So that's just an example because I believe that uh people with honor, people who want to do the right thing, in some cases are extremely intimidated from doing that, especially people with families. I myself sometimes I wonder when I go to bed at night if I'm gonna have to like, I have to be careful because I wonder what happens if there's a banging on the door at 6 a.m. I actually truly wonder that, and I was on an ISIS kill list in 2016, and that really never worried me, but knowing how my government is right now, that concerns me more than any time I ever thought about being on an ISIS kill list. Think about that, you
Think
guys.
about, yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. And so this is we're in pretty crazy times.
Yeah, and
Um,
this was that what you described, it's emblematic of living in a Soviet country in the
yeah,
during the
yeah.
Cold War.
And but but, people are doing yeoman's work. People like MJ, and I wanna bring MJ back into this because the work that he's doing and the work that the Anons are doing is absolutely putting the media to shame. It's putting the legacy media, all of these so-called Pulitzer Prize winners to shame because, the way that MJ described his process of finding out about this Hamidi fella, that's real journalism. That's real research. And he puts out story after story after story, without really ever asking for anything. It's remarkable, and to me, this is the type of selfless, sacrifice that I wanna see more people in our country doing. Like, when Idaho Garden Girl says that nobody in her area even cares about what's happening with the Chobani plant, that has to change. People have to wake up. So I wanna bring, MJ back into this conversation. When it comes to what we see happening, what is the overall trend of what you see going on here, like, with the immigrant population? I mean, you've been keeping track of what's going on in the cities, you've been keeping track of the crime. I mean, there's a lot of data that you've gathered. Do you see a reversal even being possible when Trump comes back?
Well, I think that's really the only, logical thing on the table. There's a lot of different rumors and ways that people say that you can reverse everything, but Trump has been the only person to have proposed, a logical solution, which is you have to deport everybody. How that works, the only inclination that he's given is that he'll utilize local law enforcement. And if you look back in history, I think the largest deportation that we've ever had was about 1 to 2 million people. Under somebody help me out, who the president
Truman,
was.
the wetback the Becerra program, and that wasn't working out well. They in the 50s they did a large removal, and FDR also did a lot. I mean,
Yeah, FDR
FDR
was
locked up
leading.
everyone of Japanese descent on the West Coast. So we can do these things.
Yeah,
I I have a couple ideas that I've been trying
yeah.
to.
As far as you know, are people going to wake up? Me personally, from what I've seen, I've been doing this since 2018. It doesn't wake people up until it affects them, whether that's their bills increasing or crime in their area starts going up. That's part of the reason that why people it takes a while for them to wake up is because everybody's struggling to make ends meet. You have moms and dads working 2 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and who really has time? The only reason I got involved was because something personal happened to me, and I saw it affecting my kids. And then all of a sudden I was in, you know, holy crap mode. Something is wrong with this country. And then I started looking into things and started voicing my opinion. And it turns out a lot of people feel the same way, that something's not right, something's wrong. And, I since 2018, it's definitely a lot more people aware now. And I think it started with Trump. Trump started, the trend of fake news. And I will admit, if the news said it back then, I was inclined to believe them. But the way I saw them treat Trump and how much they lied, and how easily it was to figure out what it is that he really did say, it just kind of flipped the light switch on me. So it was a personal experience that
Mhm.
happened to me, and a spiritual one too, because this journey has led me to find God along the way.
Mm.
And so waking people up, it has to hit them a certain way, whether it's
Mhm.
their pocket, spiritually, or sadly in a very negative way. And
Yeah.
I think we're making progress, but man, I'm churning every single day, to try to highlight what the hell is going, excuse my language, what is
Yeah.
going on,
Yeah.
because people are
Yeah.
too busy. They're they have soccer practice, they have another job to get to, and the most that they get as far as news is probably a headline at lunch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all know how that
Mhm.
works.
Well, interestingly, Americans spend, some crazy thing like about 11 hours a day on their devices, social
Mhm.
media, but they're still not getting the news because they're consuming, like, TikTok videos,
Well,
and
well,
things like that.
you bring up a great point, and that's why it's so vitally important
Yeah.
that people like you, do keep doing the work that you do, because people are turning to alternative forms of media,
Yeah.
whether that's
Yeah.
TikTok, or Tucker Carlson, who is now an alternative
Yeah.
form
Yeah.
of media. So we're leading this revolution of voices that people are looking for.
Mhm.
When they're the
Mhm.
darkest of times, people start looking for the people that
Yeah.
that are leaders, and they're emerging.
Now, I wanna bring up a topic that really it creates controversy, but I think that's important for people to have their paradigm stretched. I wanna bring a theory that I know that you've heard, MJ, and you probably have as well, Kevin, and that is, MJ, I know that you're a Q follower, that you have really dug pretty deep into the Q posts. I've done some. I don't know your familiarity with it, Kevin. For those who
I've
aren't
never been on
okay,
QAnon.
so for those who aren't familiar, Q is an individual or a group of individuals who posted on a message board known as 4chan, and this is where individuals known as anons tend to lurk, and there's all kinds of things happening on those boards. Eventually, that Q went to 8chan, and then it became 8kun, but the point is that the posts that Q made were largely in the Socratic method, asking a lot of
Mm.
questions and getting anons to start thinking and researching about topics such as child exploitation. That's one of them. The RussiaGate scandal, things like that. And so Q really led people and dropped what they call little crumbs to start searching. Q sometimes gave information, but typically it was an exercise in gathering open source information. And Q tapped into what we know of as the autistic brain, the researcher brain, um, collectively known as the anons. And in the beginning, everybody just called it QAnon. And that is how the fake news media came to vilify this group of individuals because they were hitting the target and uncovering the truth at an uncomfortable rate. Most of which you were told, most of the things that you were told in the past 5, 6, 7 years was a conspiracy, was actual fact that in many cases was uncovered by anons, based on clues that were dropped by Q. And so, the argument of whether Q is real, whether Q exists, whether Q is this or that, we're not going to go into that. but because we know it exists, and we know that there's been a tremendous benefit from it for a lot of people. And I've had Praying Medic on the show. He has written 3 books about Q. And I recommend that people go to his website, prayingmedic.com, if you want to explore more. His books are available where books are sold. But um, that being said, I wanted to give the backstory because we have a lot of people listening tonight, and I want to clear up that disinformation about Q. But here's the thing: some people are under the impression that what we're seeing now is an operation designed to open people's eyes, um, it w based on the idea that you can't always show people, you can't always tell people the truth, you have to show them. To what extent, MJ, do you think that what we are experiencing right now is by design? For example, that it's been allowed to happen, sort of like letting your child touch the hot stove.
Yeah, so that's probably the most asked question. And myself,
Ye
I've come across
Yeah,
myself asking that question over the years.
yeah,
And, it's hard to say that it's an operation to wake people up when real people are hurting, real people are
yeah,
dying and being affected. So the way I see it is that, and if you say that, then automatically, because Trump has, in various ways, he has kind of solidified that he knows what it is. He's never talked bad about it, and I'm sure you know what it is, but he's Q plus.
yes,
So
yeah,
the way I see it, is this a psychological operation to wake people up? Well, it's certainly working if that's the case,
mhm.
because people are waking up. Now, what I have seen is are executive orders in place and different directives that are in place that haven't been untouched. Since
Right,
Joe
they haven't
Biden.
been reversed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like Executive Order 13848. I think a lot of people know what that is. If I'm Joe Biden and I stole the election, that's probably the first executive order that I'm going to overturn. But he has renewed it, I think, 4 times,
and
or
that's the
three or
one
four
having
times
to
already.
do with foreign interference in elections, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And we definitely did have interference in our elections. So
yeah,
what I think is truly happening is that, in Trump, there's a clip, Mary Grace, that I wish I would have known that you were going to talk about this. Trump couldn't say it any clearer to me than he said it. He basically said that this is a pause. We're experiencing a pause, and
mhm,
this is a 4-year operation. And he used those exact words.
okay,
So now I think he has put in place things. So we're in his car right now. We're riding down the road, and we're having all this crazy stuff happen right now. We're crashing into things, but we're not going to go over because of those guardrails. And that's, kind of where I stand with that. That
okay,
there's guardrails in place so that we don't completely go over the edge. But at the same time, it's not that, the good guys are allowing it. It's that, right now, Joe Biden is in, he is the resident, he is the president, and they are allowing them to move forward with their radical agenda.
mhm, and this is a continuation of something that Q alerted us to early on, which was the 16-year plan to destroy America, and this
Exactly.
right? And Kevin, you're nodding your head, you're familiar
Yeah,
with this?
I've never been on a keyboard, but to
Okay,
me, it's pretty bloody obvious that they're destroying America, and
yeah,
you couldn't engineer it any better than they are,
mhm,
bringing in all these unvetted men of military age who are crossing into the border. We have no idea what they're up to. I mean, if I were a country, and let's just say I was running uh, espionage and intelligence operations, and we didn't have any kind of a budget, I'd say, hey, here's $5,000. Go up the Darien Gap, get into America, get a job, and we'll connect with you.
right,
And I think it's made us so vulnerable. And for your audience may not know this, but I spent the whole decade of the 80s in the military. I was commissioned into the infantry, and then I was 2 years later branch transferred into intelligence corps. Worked positive collections in Northeast Asia, worked counterintelligence
Okay.
in Europe. I was a Supreme Allied Commander, Europe's terrorism analyst. I hunted the likes of Abu Nidal, Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine General
Okay.
Command. And I saw a lot of stuff. And I resigned my commission in 1991, largely because my disappointment with what I'd seen. And kind of the fecklessness of, because
Mhm.
there was a master game always being played, and everyone there was just a chess piece on it. So there's a huge game afoot. America is the prize, and they're taking it because we as a people allowed ourselves
Mhm.
to get soft. Would I tell my activists, buy Wim Hof's book every morning, get up, take a cold shower, work out, make yourself physically, mentally, morally stronger. I know you're an amazing human being of faith, Mary Grace, and it probably has propelled you through a lot of adversity and allowed you to keep going. And that's what we all have to do. We have to work at this individual level, because none of us have the contacts and connections to know. In my younger days, when every once in a while I would brush up against one of these characters who would attend, you know, twice a year, a little meeting in a grove in the Bay Area. Uh, I was just blown away. It's like everything my father would say, the Rasha is this. It's like, wow, this stuff might actually
Yeah.
exist. And there is always a game afoot. But now the stakes are so high.
Yeah.
We really have to decide what kind of country we're going to leave for another generation. And
And that yeah, and I think that is what Q that those are the questions that Q prompted many people to ask. And a lot of people don't realize this, but Q frequently posted scripture. Especially, the Ephesians 6, putting on the full armor of God, right? And so what you're saying really is in line with that, and the plan to destroy America is what was revealed, to be, started the first 8 years was Obama,
Mhm.
and then they were supposed to install Hillary right after that.
Right.
And it involved importing massive groups of refugees, illegals, whatever. And if you remember at the end of Obama's term, that was when they pushed in all of the unaccompanied minors and then started DACA, remember that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that was a big push to it. And, um, and then, uh, and then it was interrupted by President Trump getting elected because they never thought she would lose. And so
I
right?
couldn't imagine. I just pray that someone was either the audio and the video of her being told that she
Yeah,
didn't win, and the
yeah.
meltdown. If that would be an Academy Award
Well,
performance, I'm
we
sure.
saw this with all of the newscasters, even on Fox. I mean, Megyn Kelly was crying because they were all assured that she was going to win, and we broke them.
You really did.
President Trump broke Facebook. I mean, Facebook changed their entire algorithm for page reach after the 2016 election. Not many people realize that. I analyzed it pretty
Mm,
thoroughly because I was running ads on Facebook, and in January 2017 they announced that their entire algorithm and their methodology for promoting pages with organic reach was being changed. That is because of the successful social media campaign that President Trump ran on Facebook, and they still, to this day, as far as I know, have not restored his page. But that's but the point is that he broke the pattern, and then he told us when during 2020, during the summer, he said, "They are going to steal it," okay? Because he
Yeah.
knew. And that's what happened, and so now that they got the resident in, it's the extension. So they're in year, 11 of the 16 years of destroying America, and they're running at breakneck speed because I
yes.
think and they're trying they know that they can't, that their ballot harvesting and their ballot, running, um, the ballot mules and things like that isn't going to work. And so
Yeah, do you
that's
think Mary Grace is forcing them to make mistakes?
I think it is because I mean, what do you think about this, MJ? Because like they can't get him out of the way. They can't steal it. I don't think they have enough resources to steal it because the numbers are not in their favor this time. They're going to have to come up with like 79, 80 million votes because that's what they told us he got last time, right?
Yeah. So,
So, what do you think?
well, based on Sidney Powell, right when
Yeah.
the election ended, she made, and I'm paraphrasing, I might get this wrong a little bit, take away what happened with the satellites. I think you heard with the satellite, the Italian satellites that were involved with the
Yeah.
election.
Okay. Yeah.
General McGregor, he talked about it a little bit.
Mm.
I think Trump got upwards towards 100 million votes, and Joe Biden maybe around 20 to 30 million.
Mhm.
And that's not even involving. That was just with the information that she was talking about in regards to votes being switched and caught on that satellite. So that's not even talking about mail-in ballots and all of those things. I brought up Highest a little while ago,
Yes.
and one of the interesting things, if you map out all those locations that
Can you
they're operating in.
what does highest stand for? Can you give us the
Hebrew immig oh, go ahead.
go ahead.
Yeah, he had it. Go ahead.
Hebrew immigration something, services?
Yeah, so they
Okay.
if you just take a look if you're interested in the map where they operate out of, and then look where Democrats voted. It's it's scary,
Yeah.
and that's actually in one of the Q drops where it talks about how the most populated areas for illegals are in the Democrat areas. So, as far as election, what they're going to do this time. I think since the last election, I think a lot of laws have changed. I think over maybe a dozen states, it's close to a dozen, that have gotten away from the ERIC voting systems. So you guys are familiar with ERIC, it's the George Soros's shoot.
Is it the
It's the ERIC voting
tabulation?
system.
Some kind of electronic voting?
Yeah,
It the
it has to do with the voter rolls and all this stuff. So
Mm.
okay.
after Mary Grace, forgive me, I don't know if you were there, but that's one of the things that we learned at the pit at that event that took place in
Yes,
Arizona.
yeah, and I wanna interject just for a second to everybody. Everybody may not be looking at the screen. I put up a graphic of the 16-year plan to destroy America. I'm gonna keep it up for a few seconds while MJ is talking. If you wanna take a screenshot, you can do that. I will post it also on my X account. I don't know how good the resolution is, but it's right there, okay? So grab it, take a screenshot, keep going. Tell us about Eric. Go ahead.
Yeah, so if you just I don't if you're on my Telegram channel, you can just type in Eric systems and it should
Okay.
pop up. But I could provide you a list, and it's been close to I think a dozen states that have removed themselves from it, and a lot of that had to do with the work of people that went to that event
Yes.
and started talking to their politicians, to the people that serve these areas, and in large part, a lot of them have been removed. So that's just one equation, or one facet to that big equation. I think what's going to happen is that you're going to have states that are really, really bad. Like, look what happened with California. I don't know if you were following that. California, that senatorial race.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it went on, and I haven't checked in like 2 days. They might still be counting. So if that's for a primary senatorial
This was
race,
against Adam. This was against
Right. It
Watermelon
was
Head.
Garvey is the
Yep.
former baseball player because they have the jungle primary in California. So it's the top two vote getters that go into the primary. It could be two Republicans, two Democrats.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and if you followed that, I looked at it every single day. There was a lady, I can't think of her name,
right.
that
She
was right
came in
behind
third.
him. Yep, and all of a sudden, Garvey, he had upwards towards a 1.8 million votes, and then within a matter of minutes, it was totally switched. They took away 900,000 votes, and elections are an additive process, and the way that they get that those numbers and how it runs through the Edison data, you shouldn't see those oscillations and fluctuations in data. But there was, you saw, quite a few times that his vote count went down. So I
Yeah,
guess what
because
I'm trying to get
Schiff would
to,
much rather run against a Republican in California. When you look at the registrations, I think it's my good friend and one of our board members, Steve Lamb, fifth generation California. I think he told me it was 67% Democrat registration. So they have a big registration advantage, but Schiff didn't want to run against another Democrat. He wanted to run against a Republican because a Democrat could very well eat his lunch,
yeah.
in a general.
And that was about getting him in the big race. I think it was about getting him past the other Democrat candidate. And then you have to make it close, because if you get to the election in 2024 and Garvey just beat you in a landslide, how can you justify it? So I
Mhm.
think in two parts, we witness, part of what's going to happen again in 2024. So some states have made a lot of progress. I think that we will see. And then some states, I think, such as California, Maine, um, we're, they're just not there,
Yeah.
and it
Mhm.
takes too long. There's too many issues. There's always things that happen
Mhm.
to Republicans, whether it's a glitch or,
But also, I will say this: I lived in California for 20 years. The Republican Party is a shambles there.
Mhm.
They're just gutless, unorganized. They have no grassroots plan at the end of the day.
That's a shame.
It
Yeah.
really is. They're just
Um,
beaten and whipped.
so this is, this is a really this conversation, I mean, we I wanna, I wanna stay on the topic, but I don't, in a way, because all of it matters, right? The
It's all
election,
kind of.
the way that we're voting. I wanna get back to Tyson just for a minute, because
Mhm.
I don't wanna lose the thread of this. But do you guys mind if we take a quick break? I wanna run a commercial because I don't
Sure,
wanna
go for
forget
it.
that, and then we can just give everybody, maybe people need to stretch their legs or something, get a little beverage break. MJ, are you okay with a little more time here with
yeah,
this
sure.
conversation? Okay. So, now let me put on my producer hat. And thank you for everybody for being here. I want to run this quick ad, remind everybody that we are listener supported. I also want to remind you guys, we've been talking about Tyson, and one of the biggest comments that we got for Tyson was, like, who eats that stuff anyway? And so this is a good time to let you know that we actually have an affiliate partner that is packaging and freeze drying really super high quality beef, American beef, and it's called Grid Down Chow Down. I love the name and the graphic. Griddownchowdown.com. And this is a pound of ground beef right here. It's freeze dried. It's not jerky. It's not, doesn't have anything added, it's just ground beef, and you add water to it. You add water to it to reconstitute it, and you can do anything that you would do with a pound of fresh ground beef, or a pound of ground beef that you took out of the freezer. You can make meatballs, spaghetti sauce, tacos, meatloaf, whatever it is you're gonna do, shepherd's pie, all that. You just cook up the ground beef, hamburgers, anything, and it's shelf stable for 12, 15 years. Some
What?
people say 25. Yeah, Kevin, you got to get this.
Oh my gosh, I do.
This
This
is
is
the
awesome.
ultimate. This is better than stacking silver. I mean, you can eat it. So
Wow.
this is the ultimate shelf stable apocalyptic food.
And
And
MREs.
yes, it's amazing, tastes way better than MREs, and so what you're gonna do, you go to griddownchowdown.com. These guys are just Americana. I love these guys, Jordan and Nace. They're family men out in Oklahoma. I met them, I saw them, in person, and they run this business. They just wanted to find sustainable ways, for people to start, saving and putting good quality meat aside without worrying about power outages, grid down outages. And so that's them. That's me with them last week in Oklahoma. And they're just great guys. They're meat eaters, you can tell. And so they partnered with local ranchers and farmers to bring this product to market, and they do it all themselves. They're upping their production. They're getting industrial scale freeze dryers. So they're putting the capital investment into this company to bring you this product. And so when you buy from them, and you use promo code Mary Grace, it benefits us right here. It helps me to keep this show going, and to go to events and to get the training and the coaching that I need to bring you the best quality production. Um, griddownchowdown.com. Tell them Mary Grace sent you, and just stockpile this stuff. They have a membership, Kevin. You can get on the subscription. And
Cool.
so if the subscription isn't open, just email them and tell them you want to get on the waiting list for the subscription. So that for everybody. Okay, Kevin, where have you been? You haven't seen this?
I haven't seen it.
Okay,
First
so
time.
this is new. This is kind of new for me. So this is one of my best, most favorite partners. A lot of my other partners can be found, all of them can be found on my website at marygracemedia.com. And you can get, yeah, so you can go to marygracemedia.com, go on the shopping link, and rather than run the commercial, I'm just going to tell you the stuff. So marygracemedia.com, here's the people that we really want you to connect with right now. One is our friends over at beverlyhillspreciousmetals.com. Now, Kevin is a prolific
I
silver
love silver.
collector. Yeah. And so he can tell you that it's not going anywhere. And over there, Kevin Sorcini is our partner over there. He and his team, they have done a tremendous job of helping people safeguard their retirement and cash in the bank. So, like, if you sold a house and you're trying to maybe wait and you don't want to reinvest in anything right now, but you got a bunch of money in the bank, you don't know what's going to happen like tomorrow, with the banks. It's a little scary. And so if you call them, if you go to their website, bh-pm.com, and tell them your situation, they will contact you and they'll talk you through and help you determine if it's the right fit for you to transfer some of those assets into physical gold and or silver.
Yeah, and you
So,
said the word physical. Got
yes,
not the
it's
paper,
physical.
not
Yeah,
not the derivative, but the
right.
physical.
You don't want a certificate, you actually want the physical. Now, and if you have it in an IRA or a 401k and you're not taking distributions yet, they will explain to you how that works so that you don't get a penalty. So don't worry about that. They're the experts, I'm not, but their number is 866-346-5325, 866-346-5325. They are just tremendous to work with, and they will take good care of you. And it's an important decision. I'm trying to figure out how to minimize the screen right now. That didn't work. Okay, so how do I get it back? Hold on. Now I just lost the whole screen. There we go. Um, Crazy. Where did it go? How do I get out? Escape. Okay, there we go. So, the producer messed up. Okay, but they're amazing, and so you even if you're a newbie, you don't know what you're talking about, just fill in the form and say, "I don't know anything about this. I'm worried about my bank account. I'm worried about my retirement. Walk me through this." Okay? Or if you're like Kevin and you know a lot about this and you want to work with this company, you can say that. Say, "I'm a seasoned collector. I'm seasoned at this. I have this much that I want to convert, and get into my vault." They'll work with you as well. Okay. And so that's tremendous. The other thing that we'd love to highlight here is our friends over at mypillow.com. There's no better time to buy a pillow because maybe some of you are having trouble sleeping with all of the troubles that are happening. Well, just go to mypillow.com, use code Mary Grace, and get a nice, wonderful pillow from Mike Lindell. You can get everything: slippers, dog beds, towels, sheets, you name it. It's all there. So don't go to the big box stores for any of those home furnishing type things. Go to mypillow.com, use promo code Mary Grace, and you get the best discounts when you do that. The next thing is everybody needs to be taking care of their health. This is so critical that you get outside of the system of medical tyranny that we have been subjected to. People have become much more aware of what is going on. And so go to Synapse, Center for Health and Healing, Synapse Center for Health and Healing. Tell them Mary Grace sent you. The number there is 651-209-9906, 651-209-9906. And just tell them Mary Grace sent you. Dr. Troy Sproul is there. They do functional medicine. So they're actually going to talk to you about like how your body works, and they're going to help you to get into the best, most optimal health for you. They're not going to look at you for 3.5 minutes and then bill your insurance for money for something they didn't even help you with. That's not how this works. So Synapse, official synapse.com. It's official synapse.com. Now that's it for our commercial break. Just lastly, don't forget, go to marygracemedia.com and get on the mailing list so that you don't miss any of our content, any of our shows. This has been a tremendous show tonight. I hope that we will get more and more people on the mailing list so that you can catch future shows like this. I just had a message from Michael Yon while we were live, and he said that he wants to come on next week. He has been
So where is
highlighting.
he today? He's
I think
everywhere.
he's in an undisclosed location, but Michael Yon has been doing tremendous work and showing us what's been going on at the border. He and Ann Vandersteel have been doing Operation Burning Edge. They've been featured on on Bannon's War Room. They've been featured on Alex Jones. They've just been Tucker Carlson did a profile with Michael Yon. So this is a very
Yeah,
serious,
he had Brett Weinstein on, and
yeah,
Brett was
serious,
just
yeah.
saying his praises. And Brett, as you know, is a really bright guy.
Yeah, and Michael took Brett Weinstein down there. He's taken many congressmen down to the Darien Gap. So this is really tremendous that the work that he's doing. He is a true war correspondent who knows how to do actual journalism. So here's the thing. I want to say something in the comments about the gold and silver. Uh, Whenever you do business with a brokerage firm, with a gold and silver brokerage, or with a bank, yes, there are fees. That's the cost of doing business. So no matter where you go, you may not realize that the bank is charging you fees because a lot of them are hidden. When you work with our dealers with gold and silver, they are going to be very upfront with you about what the fees are. So I just want to be very clear about that. You are paying fees no matter where your money is. They're not all disclosing it. So I just want to be very clear. There's nothing hidden here. We're not trying to pull one over on you. We're just giving you some options for working with somebody that can give you that can help you transfer what you have into a physical, tangible object that holds value over time. And I'm not giving you investment advice. Kevin's not giving you investment advice. The people at our partners will be doing that if you choose to partner with them as a client. Okay, so I just had to get that disclaimer out of there. So we're back. That's the end of my commercial. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This is Mary Grace TV. We are talking about the massive, massive layoffs that have happened through Tyson Foods. This is a good time to show everybody the derivatives of Tyson, the divisions, the companies that sell other foods under different names. These are Tyson companies. The graphic is up on the screen. You may recognize some of them. Wright brand bacon, they have that at Sam's Club. And some other grocery stores. Sara Lee, bet you didn't think your pastry was from Tyson's, but there it is. You don't need to eat this stuff anyway. Hillshire Farm. What are some other ones? Bryan Foods. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, Tyson. So just take a look at that, screenshot it, pay attention when you go to the store, because I'm not a huge fan of boycotts, but this is a company that we need to boycott. And all of the other companies.
If
Yeah.
I can interject, I am a huge fan of boycotting. And for a long time, no one would even say boycott. I'm talking like the 70s, 80s, because it was such an effective way. In a consumer driven society, it is. The problem today is with this whole ESG mindset, and you have these companies like BlackRock that can move billions in pension funds around. So this is where, heroes like Riley Moore, who's the treasurer in West Virginia, who is like, up yours, Bank of America. Our treasure is beneath our feet, and you're not going to mess with it. But the problem is, even though like it makes no economic sense, like to continue Bud Light and everything, continue the way they are, these guys could really hurt them at that, stock level where they could say, well, we just may not push our, money into your stock, into your company,
Right,
things like
right,
that. It's
right.
really twisted and sick when you think about it. But that's how dysfunctional things have gotten, where
Mhm.
things that should make perfectly good sense in a free functioning market don't always do that.
Right, and one of the things that I've heard about BlackRock and Kevin, MJ, maybe you can chime in on this. So again, for those of you who are just getting here, maybe you haven't gotten the first part of our show, we have Kevin Lynn with us. Kevin Lynn is the executive director of the the
Institute for
Institute
Sound
for
Public
Sound
Policy.
Public Policy and U.S. tech workers. And MJ is a researcher extraordinaire. He is one of the people that we know of as Anons, which is why you just see an avatar here. And he does some of the best work that I know in the Anon community, and the most prolific work. And so, MJ, I have a question for you about this, because I've heard a theory that BlackRock, for example, when it came to the Bud Light debacle, that they do things like this intentionally, and that there are people, there are insiders who short the stocks so that they can profit off of these types of market downturns, that are a result of these catastrophic decisions that cause people to boycott. Have you heard anything like that, or have you come across anything like that in your research?
Nothing specific to that, but it doesn't
Mhm.
surprise me. And they know how to manipulate the market. If you look what happened to GameStop, what was that,
Yeah.
about a year or two ago? Um,
Yeah.
the people on, what was it, Reddit? They kind of figured out what they were doing, and then they did it to them. So it wouldn't surprise me that they're doing that. But we're talking about boycotts overall, and
Mhm.
frankly, I don't think that they care. You know, Kevin brought up the ESG, and that to me is kind of what they're all about right now. And it doesn't matter if a company goes bankrupt, because you have, the Black Rocks of the world, the Vanguards, that can shift millions and millions, billions of dollars around and recoup their losses. It's really all just one big pocket, just shuffling around change.
Mhm.
So,
ESG, what's ESG for our listeners?
well, so for example, ESG, when I first learned about it, it blew me away. It's basically like a category, a score that all these companies have started to make their companies through board membership. Uh, Basically, I'm trying to say it in a nice way, to
It's
show how
a
woke you are, to show
definition,
how
Mary
woke you
Grace.
are, to
Environmental
show how.
social justice
It's a
or
woke score.
governance. Environmental
Yeah,
social
so
governance.
if you have more LGBTQ stuff, if you have more stuff that promotes diversity, that's what it's about. And the Black Rocks of the world, they strong arm these companies. They will physically bankrupt you if you're part of that system, and they have majority shareholdership. And if you're not following along, they're basically keeping people hostage with those scores. So it's just a woke score that all of these companies that are involved with, you name it, if it's a big company, they have that ESG system in
Mhm.
place.
So it's like
So
a social credit score for businesses.
Yeah.
it's exactly that. Yep.
Okay,
It's just a,
okay.
a woke credit score.
Mhm. Okay. And so then DEI is the policy that they push.
Diversity,
Equity
equity,
and
Equity and
inclusion.
inclusion
inclusion.
comes under ESG, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
it's a
it's
So
it's yeah,
you
it's
might
part
have
of the
like a
monster.
DEI hire, as I,
Yeah.
one of in people like people in our situation, we need to be concerned about the local constabulary, the police forces, and everything. And when you start seeing
Mhm.
seasoned leaders pulled out and replaced by someone who they'll come out and say is a DEI hire. We needed some.
Yep.
It's like it's a little worrisome.
And if you look into it, I mean, if you really think about it, when it comes to doctors or somebody that's working on airplanes, we see all these issues with Boeing.
Yeah.
If you're hiring the person that's 10% less capable, you're going to have a 10% less product. So to me, it's,
Yeah.
the DEI has nothing to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It has to do with deterioration of the United States. Our bridges, our medical industry, everything is going to and has been, declining.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's that DEI. As nice as and as pretty as they
Oh, interesting that his
privileged
sound.
Yeah.
people, why not help
We can actually rope this
to
back to
destroy
Hamdi
and to deteriorate every
Oh,
single thing
hold
in
on.
America?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we're losing your you might have to click out and come back, MJ. There's
Is it that much less? I'm trying to think of a word.
okay.
I can't think of a word. It just makes it less. It makes everything less.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how do you say? I can't think of it. So I lived in South Africa just after the end of apartheid. And okay, hopefully we'll get MJ back here. The policy, this is a carryover of what we saw happening in South Africa, but it really came down from Zimbabwe, from when Mugabe was in power, and he started an all-out assault against white Zimbabweans in that country, um, and it was war, and it was meant to destroy the white the white farmers, anybody that had been responsible for helping to build the infrastructure in that country to a standard of excellence. Now, was it a perfect system? No, of course there were lots of problems. Same thing with South Africa, but those policies were trickling over to South Africa when I was there. And so anybody who knows the history of that part of the world knows that DEI is not new, that it was rampant under Mugabe. I mean, he was literally calling for the full scale slaughter of whites in Zimbabwe, and now that's what's happening in South Africa. And so this is just like I said, we're looking at sort of like Zimbabwe and South Africa light right now in this country. But it's a wake up call because we now have people calling for the destruction, the all out destruction of, what they call the colonizers or the whites in this country, in the West.
And
Um,
it's really
yeah,
it's they're I mean, Western culture, the
yeah,
art,
Western
beauty
civilization.
of you look, why do you want a liberal education? So you can appreciate the fruits of Western culture,
Yeah,
whether it's classical music, whether it's architecture, whether it's
yeah,
art, whether it's a system design where not perfect, but does really try to be fair. I
mhm,
mean, the
yeah,
Constitution is an amazing document, and it
yeah,
came out
yeah,
of the Age of Enlightenment.
yeah,
Uh, and all of that seems to uh, what does it seem to, I guess what I'm trying to say is uh, people have been so gaslit so as not to appreciate and value these great things.
mhm,
They will, and you'll see it in communities where you know you look at our architecture. you know I personally love to be in a building, whether I'm living or working in it, that's over 100 years old, because there's something about the bones, there's something
yeah,
about the care and the style and the
yeah,
grace that went into its construction. And then I see, for instance, what they're building right next to me, which is this 13-story brick essentially,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
looks awful, and it doesn't allow the spirit and to to soar it and
mhm,
inspire us and make us aspire to be greater
yeah,
than ourselves. It just
yeah, yeah.
tells us we're tiny, we're
It's
little, we go into our holes, into our boxes, and that's where
yeah.
we remain.
Yeah. What I was gonna say about what MJ was talking about with everything being less, One of the things that President Trump talks about a lot is "Make America Great Again," and the naysayers will tell you that he wants to return America to sort of the paternalism of the 1950s. That couldn't be further from the truth. What he's saying is that he wants to see the quality, the standard of quality that built the kinds of things that you're talking about. And if you go to a Trump property, the first time I ever went to one, I
Mm,
was blown away by the quality of
mm.
even just the basic finishings. So, like, when you if you go into the bathroom at a Trump hotel, you can, like, stand on the toilet paper holders. I'm not even kidding. Have you known
No,
is
I've
that
never been to one, no.
and so anywhere, any other place, like, can you stand on the toilet paper holder without thinking it's gonna fall off?
It's
I'm not saying
over-engineered.
I'm not saying I did it, but I'm saying you could, because this is what we're talking about. It's like these solid brass finishings, right? That's what we're talking about. And so when MJ was talking about things being less than, it's the tyranny of mediocrity.
Mm,
And
yes.
that is what we're trying that's what we don't want in this country. And in any country really. We want to see the world prosper. But the people that want to destroy this country by hook or by crook, they actually want to really, really push us into mediocrity, if not third world, what status. Okay. That's what they want for this country. And there are people who are fighting against that. It's not elitism. It's it's not any of that. It is a commitment to excellence.
And it's also it's millions of personal courageous acts. Did you ever watch this movie with Michael Caine and Robert Duvall called Secondhand Lions?
I've heard of it. Yeah.
There's
I
a
mean, but
great
I haven't seen it.
there's a great scene in there where Bob Duvall's character beats up these young ruffians, and before the fight begins, he goes, "See, this is what I've been talking about. Ever since they were knee high to the ground, they've been running around doing what they want to do, and no one, you know, people were too good natured to do anything to stop them and stand them up and get them down the
Yeah.
right path. The same way I'm told that if there aren't a lot of adult elephants around, the young ones just start going on rampages and stuff like that. uh,
Interesting.
Again, we have to decide. It's like we have to kind of come together as a culture where there are actually standards
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
behavior, I
Yeah.
believe, and where we have to
Yeah.
take care of our own.
Yeah.
I live, as you know, Mary Grace, in the heart of Amish Lancaster. I
Yeah.
live in the city of Lancaster, and they don't pay Social Security, things like that, because they take care of their own. Like, they
Mhm.
would be embarrassed if someone in their community was in need and the community couldn't help them.
Right.
And that's an amazing value to live by. I
Well,
mean, if
that's what
we
the
could do that
church
as
is
a country.
supposed to do.
Mhm.
The church is supposed to take care of the poor, the needy, and it's been relegated to government. I mean, that's a whole different conversation. I think, since we got MJ back, I don't know what's going on with his feed, but I wanna make sure we get another word from him before we lose him again. I don't wanna lose him. MJ, are you there? Can you hear us? Can we hear you? He's like a shadow of his former self.
Mm.
I don't know what's happening here. He keeps getting pushed off. The black spot that you see on the screen is MJ Truth. We'll see if he gets back. I just sent him a message. I don't know what's going on. It's interesting. Like I said, we do get we just run into issues, sometimes with these types of
Mhm.
shows when we're talking about explosive topics like this. It's just the
Right.
facts. So we're gonna chat for a few more minutes. We're gonna see if we can get MJ back, but we are coming up on the 2-hour mark.
Where did the
Um,
time go, Mary Grace?
yeah, I don't know. This is one of those things where you go, "Yeah, we'll talk for 45 minutes to an hour maybe," and then it just goes on and on, but it's such an important conversation, and if you're just coming into this part of the conversation, I want to let people know that we spent, more than the first hour talking about what is going on with the Tyson food layoffs, up in Iowa, And this is a really critical topic because there is a lot more happening in addition to that. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what is happening with replacing American workers. And so this is we brought Kevin Lynn on, we brought MJ on because MJ actually broke the story about what is happening really far above and beyond the Tyson story. And so please go back and listen to that. Please don't neglect to hear this. Please share it far and wide and ask everybody that you know to set aside a good hour to listen to the first part of this show. We want you to listen to the whole thing. But if you have a limited time, listen to the first hour and make sure that you have a deep understanding. Now, Kevin, as we're waiting for MJ to chime in here, we'll see if he can get his audio back. We want to think about some solutions. You said that talking and MJ said this too, getting in touch with people who can make a difference.
Right.
Who would
If
that
you're
be?
at Tyson's, because I believe what's going on is citizen discrimination. And if you're working at Tyson's and you're laid off in your job, you were never given the chance to work at another Tyson manufacturer, or if you're working at a place and they lay you off and they bring in a foreigner to take your job, that you might have very well have the basis for a lawsuit on the basis of citizenship, country of origin, or citizenship discrimination. And what you want to do, and this is, and I've been telling this to tech workers because I used to have a show I call "What to Do When You Feel You're going to Get H1 Booted." Um, you want to be taking very careful notes of everything. Sometimes you may not be able to take a note or take a photograph or record a conversation, but do a memorandum for record. Because what's going to happen a year later when you're in front of an administrative law judge and they're saying, "Oh, we never did that." "Oh, really?" "Because on this day, between this time, they said this, 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 and this."
Okay.
That's going to weigh very heavily either on the judge or on the jury.
Okay.
And come together. Don't be isolated. The problem with Americans, and this is part of our character. Everyone's, we're the Lone Rangers out there.
Mhm.
If you're the Lone Ranger, you're going to get picked off. And
Yeah.
if you've been to survival schools or you've been in serious predicaments, you don't make it alone. You got to come together as a group. You got to
Mhm.
trust each other, and you got to work collectively to fight back against these guys.
Yeah.
You might have to strike, you to bring attention to this, uh, and you may lose. They may say, "Well, you're not going to get your month's severance pay." Well, I'm going to be going into a place where a month isn't going to matter because, like in this town in Iowa, there's only 8,000 people in it, and 1,300 are employed by Tyson. So that's eventually probably going to affect half the town. There aren't
Mhm.
going to be any jobs there anyway. Fight like hell for these jobs.
Mhm.
Fight. That's what we have to do. Attorney John Miano, who I've been working with, we almost got to the Supreme Court on a case, but they just chose not to hear it. But John is an amazing fighter for the working man
Mhm.
and woman in this
A
city.
a
And
and so when it comes to these types of lawsuits, are you guys, at the Center for Sound Public Policy, the Institute for Sound Public Policy, are you are you helping? So if someone reaches out to you, a Tyson worker or
yeah,
any other worker who's been pushed out, uh, as a result of these policies, what you call immigration discrimination, um, or H-1 booted, I like that. How can they get in touch with you, with this
go to the
attorney?
website. My email is there.
And so
Kaylin at
what's the website? Tell us the website.
it's you spell it out. The Institute. Oh no, it's just Institute for Sound Public Policy.org.
Okay.
And I am K. Lynn at Institute for Sound Public Policy.org.
Alright, I'm putting it up here in the ticker, okay? Institute
And what we'd like
for
to do, reach out to us, because the best thing that could happen is I'll get on a plane. get people together. We'll meet at a Denny's or something, and we'll talk about what's going on
Okay.
and talk about what needs to be done now in terms of information that needs to be pulled on the way these firings or displacements are being done, because you
Okay.
do have rights. It does vary from state to state. There are certainly federal statutes, but there are a lot of state
Okay.
statutes
Okay.
as well.
And I wanna remind you guys, I know that this is it's disheartening, you know, to be in this situation because it feels like, with everything that happened with the pandemic, I mean, it feels like the little guy never gets a chance. But I wanna remind you that Kevin Lynn, the person that's on this screen right now, is the person that got the attention of President Trump when the head of, the
The
Tennessee
Tennessee Valley
Valley
Authority.
Authority tried to replace all of those workers with foreign workers during the pandemic. He got President Trump's attention and got that reversed. That was Kevin Lynn who did that. That's who's on our show right now. That's him on the screen with President Trump. So I want you to take this seriously. If you know somebody who's been at Tyson, who's been in any company that has had this happen to them, take this advice. Give them this portion of the show. Tell them to take the advice that Kevin is giving. Record, write down from memory what happened to you. Record everything you can, screenshot everything you can, save every piece of communication that you get from your employer or ex employer, from HR, no matter what it is. Keep a documentation because this is an area, this is Kevin's one of his superpowers. Okay. So you want to reach out to him and his team to get solutions. It may take a while because of the way the court system
It
works.
does. I mean,
Yeah,
you find it's 2 years have gone by,
yeah, yeah.
but it will you will have your day in the sun, your day in front of the judge, and I've always said, my father would tell me, "Sometimes you gotta drag them to the courthouse door," and that's what
Wow.
we need to do. The laws are there, the powers that be, it's kind of the way our system is set up. They'll do what they want until we call foul and drag them to the
Yeah,
courthouse
yeah,
doors.
yeah. And so it's interesting. Somebody had a comment about the yogurt guy because we were saying that the guy, the Chobani yogurt founder, is
Right,
really.
Hamdi Ulukaya.
Yeah, he's the one who's behind a lot of these policies, the organization called Tent, and you can go back to the beginning of the show to learn more about that. Hogan on, YouTube says the Yogurt Man had a negative piece years ago from 60 Minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So if you can tell us kind of about when that was, I'm sure Kevin wants to find that. Okay, and then Anne on Facebook says it's hard to win a political battle at the workplace when you don't know who the enemy is or what you have done. Speak up
See,
and fight regardless. That's a good comment. Yeah.
yeah, it is, because you won't. So many times when I'd seen these outsourcings of the IT departments, there were people that would go around and say, "Hey, let's come together and work." And one guy, I'll never forget this, Mary Grace. We were talking about that experience, and he started to break down and cry. I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, they came to me and I told them to go away because I didn't think they'd fire me, but they fired me too, along with everyone else. I thought I was so smart I wouldn't get fired." And he said, "I've been for 5 years. This thing has been in my heart, in my mind." And it got it out. And I think
Wow.
that was a gestalt.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
see this all the time, and it breaks my heart to see good people just
Yeah.
discarded
Yeah.
like they're nothing,
Yeah.
and they're citizens, and it shouldn't be that way.
Yeah, exactly. And so Kevin is at the forefront. Thank you for doing that, Kevin, for your work on behalf of American workers who are affected negatively by these immigration and work visa policies. This is what you do. This is your call, your destiny in life is to fight this.
Thank you.
Um, yeah.
Better for
So,
worse.
well, that's
Yeah.
I have a mandate to help people walk into their destiny. You're already in yours, so I just want to highlight it. And so for everybody, this is so important because there are people out there who are fighting for the little man and woman, and Kevin is one of them. and his organization. MJ sent me a message. MJ Truth was on the show until just recently. For some reason, he just kept getting booted out, and so he called it a night, and he said to thank everybody for being here tonight, for listening. I want you guys to know that we have over 1,500 people on the live stream across X and Facebook and YouTube and Rumble, probably pushing 2,000 because we know they suppress the numbers. So that's pretty exciting. And that means that people not only are watching it live, but that we will get tremendous replay on the replay. And
Yes.
so please, 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 uh, if you know anybody who is affected by this in any of these towns or industries, send this out to them. Tell them to watch the last part, especially to get the resources and the solutions, but also get the awareness out. Repost this, send it in emails, tag people that you know. When you come back on the replay, especially on the main social platforms that hate us, leave a comment and hit the hearts and likes and subscribe to the channel because that actually shows up on your feed and it gives more people a chance to see what we're doing here when you do that. When you share it on your wall, when you leave a comment, that tells the algorithm that people are interested and engaged. And so that's a really important way to get the word out. Okay. Especially on, like I said, the legacy platforms that hate us because they do their best. I think our numbers are much higher on Facebook and YouTube. They just don't let people see that they are because it's a form of psychological manipulation and what do you call it? Demoralization.
Right. Hmm.
So we understand it's information war. And so I really, really want to urge you and thank you. Just copy the link and put it into an email to all the people that you know. Send it to in a private message because this is the kind of information that people don't know. Nobody's going to tell them. The nightly news is not going to tell them what's going on. They have no idea. And so we've just got to drip, 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 get the word out. So before we go, Kevin, any last words for our listeners before we sign off tonight?
Just, stay the course. Don't, I mean, I say don't get disillusioned. You will be, but it's called being resilient. You get knocked down, you get back up
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
and we'll be doing this until the next administration. And then
Yeah.
frankly, the real work starts because we got to
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
everything back to good. And we're
Yeah.
great, actually. And
Exactly. Perfect. I love it. Yeah, the real work starts. And it's like Sam Faddis says, he says, there is no quit. Like it's not over until we won. And he doesn't just mean winning an election. He means like getting everything back.
yeah,
And so we really and I want to encourage people take time. Your faith walk is tremendously important. One of the things that I do in the evenings is I play meditative worship music. I kind of start tuning out of social media, turning the lights down, turn the TV off, get yourself in a place where you can actually rest. In the daytime, get outside, get fresh air, take little breaks, give that gift to yourself because you have to be in fighting shape, and then start taking care of your health. Look at our partners. Take care of your food, take care of your health in the best way you can. Really take care of what goes into your mind because it's so critical as you go through this war and all of the little battles of every day to do that. Lean into God and trust him and ask him for the help because we can't do it alone. We really can't. And again, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this show tonight. Thank you for everybody who is a faithful listener to all of my longtime listeners and supporters, and then all the new people. Welcome to the show. Please follow, like, subscribe so that you don't miss. And then, of course, go to my website, marygracemedia.com, get on the email list, and we will see you back very soon. We actually have a great show coming up this Saturday with one of our favorite people. And that's going to be at 1 o'clock. I'd never say it ahead of time because eh, all the meanies will try to make it not happen. So you guys know it's one of our favorites. So come back and watch the show on Saturday right here. Go to marygracemedia.com. You can find all my channels there. Have a great evening, everybody. And thank you again, Kevin Lynn, for
Thank you,
being
Mary
here.
Grace. Have a good night.